We're here to do the plugs and coils on a third generation Prius, but first we've got to get out of this wind so you can hear me really well, and we're going to have a frank discussion about what kind of plugs to use and why. If you decide to tackle this job yourself, you could end up burnt, bruised, or bleeding.
Or you could save hundreds of dollars and give it to your wife. Thank you.
If you're watching this video, it's because you're awesome, and you're about to learn something that makes you even more awesome. Now, first of all, we can't have any discussion, learn anything, or do any work without some good coffee. Especially on a cold day like this. Now, you may have noticed that if you're trying to find the plugs for your third generation Prius, that there's a dizzying array of different plugs that fit that car. If they're not the iridium plugs, don't even bother. And when you get to the iridium plugs, you'll find out that there's 3 different iridium plugs, even if you're only looking at the original equipment Denso plugs. There's still going to be 3 different choices, and I would urge you to narrow it down to one of those 3 and not even bother with any of the other brand plugs or any of the other non-iridium plugs. Number 1, your Toyota Prius third generation came with the heat range. Well, let me just show you here. These are the Denso, and I don't have my glasses on here, so I can't read the part number off to you. But it's a heat range 20. After these, Toyota decided, because of drivability complaints, that they would go back to the heat range 16 that they had in the second generation, first generation Prius, and for some people that did solve their drivability problems. That's a colder plug, the heat range 16 is, and these heat range 20 are a hotter plug. Well, some people actually got more drivability problems when they switched to the heat range 16, which is a colder plug, and that wasn't working out well for them. So Denso came up with, finally, the Iridium TT, which is what I'm going to be using in this third generation Prius. And the reason is because even if you have a heat range 20, you have an iridium tip on this electrode only, but you do not have iridium tip on this electrode. You still have a regular electrode here with no iridium tip. With the Iridium TT, which is 2 T's, meaning there's 2 tips, 2 iridium tips, you have iridium on both electrodes. This gives you a much better spark and eliminates those drivability problems that you may be having with both the heat range 20 and the heat range 16. Now, this has a completely different part number. It is a heat range 20 plug, and there will be a link in the description to these plugs. I will also put a link in the description to the single tip iridium, which is what the cars originally came with, heat range 20, and the 16, because unfortunately, when you get it narrowed down to these 3 plugs, what it boils down to is, which one does your Prius like the best? I suspect the reason why this Prius here will only operate correctly with the Iridium TT, which is the best of the 3 plugs, is because it has over 360,000 miles on it. So it needs all the help it can get. And your driving habits have something to do with whether you're going to do better with the heat range 20 plug or the heat range 16 plug, which is the colder plug. No matter which plug you use, though, I strongly urge you to continue going with the original Denso Toyota coils, and any of those aftermarket coils that you may have in the car, get them out of there and put the original Toyota coils back in there. Okay, first thing you're going to start with is the nuts here, here, and here to get the wiper blades off. Then we're going to take this off by removing the releasing the clips and removing this clip here. There should be one on the other side. What I'm using is Milwaukee Fuel brushless. You don't absolutely have to have one of these, but if you do want one, there's a link in the description. If you don't have very calloused fingers like I do, you'll probably want to use a flathead screwdriver to release these and the push pin. Do not lose these. There are 4 of these. There's a divot right here that goes in a spot right there. That you have to pull loose. There. There's a bracket here. It has 3 bolts. And it is the same bolts that go in the tray. I like to bring the driver's side out. Blam. And the engine cover pulls straight up. This has divots here, here, and here. Can't get to this bolt without disconnecting the connector right there. Now you're going to need one of these little bitty 9/16 plug sockets, an extension, and a hand ratchet, of course. And if you haven't had these plugs out in a while, or the person before you did not use some anti-seize on the threads, then you're going to need to spray some penetrating oil down in the hole to help you get it out without ruining the threads on the head. Luckily, I'm the one that's been working on this, so they should come out easily. Yeah, due to the fact that I use anti-seize on the threads. Now if you want to use power tools, only use them on taking it out. Make sure you're in reverse. Never use these for putting in. Now these iridiums are pre-gapped, and it's a very good thing because you can't gap these plugs. You can't even stick a cut plug gap checker in there without taking a chance on ruining the iridium tips. It only takes a tiny bit of anti-seize. Right there, just in one little spot, because when you go to screw that in, it's going to spread it around. And if you put it on the first few threads, don't get any on the electrode. If you put it on the first few threads down here at the bottom, as you screw it in, it'll spread it all the way around. This is the part where you have to be the most careful. It's like playing that kid's game Operation. You don't want to touch anything. Okay, when you get to the point where you feel a little bit of resistance, that's when you stop, make a note of where your handle is, and go like 1/8 of a turn. And that's enough. You just want to compress this washer right here. It takes about 1/8 of a turn. Now if you're replacing your coils, like I said before, you want to use original OEM Toyota coils. And one of the ways you can tell for sure that they are original Toyota, if you're looking at your old ones to see if they're original Toyota, if maybe you're not having any problems, but you want to change any aftermarket ones back to Toyota, just look right here and it will say Toyota on it. If it's the original Denso Toyota, and this one says Toyota Denso. Now these, I've already had the boxes open. I've already put a little bit of dielectric grease right here. I put a little bit of dielectric grease right there. And I put dielectric grease in here. This is the dielectric grease I use. And let me just show you. What I normally do is put a little bit here and here, like that, so that when I put the connector on there, it spreads it out. You have to be extremely careful with this first bolt here because it's right up against this sensor. You don't want to have to buy one of these. And then we're just going to repeat the process with all the other three. done. I know these bottles of Loctite are expensive, but you need to be using it. I like to lay my bolts out nice and neat. Welcome to Saint Auto. We're so glad you're here. We don't just do repairs and tool reviews.
Bienvenida a Saint Auto. Nosotros no solamente hacemos reparaciones de autos.
We also film hot rods and mod rods, project cars, classic cars, antiques.
Nosotros también filmea autos antiguos, mod rods, hot rods, cualquiera.
We also like to take you with us to the car shows and the cruise-ins, so make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss anything.
Me gustaría llevarte con nosotros a los cruise-ins y car shows. Entonces, empuja ese botón y toca de campaña para que no pierda nada.